I'm not a big fan of vampires or westerns, but Darkwatch somehow totally sucked me in, pun intended. I started this game with no expectation, but straight away I realized that this will be a good game, which was overshadowed by big names in its time, but it aged very well and this is still a solid entry in the 6th gen console FPS era. In this video, I'm going to tell you why I enjoy this hidden gem, a stylish first-person shooter that blends genres in the weirdest and coolest way possible. I hope that you have some garlic and wooden sticks nearby, just in case, as this will be a ride filled with demons and vampires. Are you ready? Let's go! Darkwatch was developed by Hivon Studios and released in 2005 for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. It was their first title and honestly it was an incredibly bold debut. Originally pitched as a more open world experience, the game was eventually streamlined into a mission-based shooter. When I say open world, do not imagine Borderlands or Fallout open world experience. Later in the game you have some choices which missions you would like to do. This gives some options for the player, but I would not call this an open world experience. Despite strong previews and the unique setting, it didn't quite make a splash or release, mostly overshadowed by bigger FPS titles like Halo 2 and Half-Life 2. And if you think about, both of those are very high quality games and it's not an easy job to stand up to them. But under the surface, Darkwatch had something special. So, what is Darkwatch about? You play as Jericho Cross. I wonder if this name Cross has anything to do with vampires or it is just a coincidence. Anyway, so you're a train robbing outlaw who accidentally releases a centuries old vampire lord and gets bitten in the process. Well, Mr. Cross, you should make your research a bit better next time. I had to say that the game starts with a unique twist. So, now you're part of Undead yourself, recruited by a secret organization called the Darkwatch to stop the evil you just unleashed. I had to say that I not expected a deep story from this game, but I loved how the story have started. This is much better than if you would start already as a member of the Darkwatch, for example. That will be a bit generic in my opinion. Of course, this is not a grand RPG story with deep lore and big twists and jaw-dropping moments, but for an FPS, it is fine. It is a refreshing setting from Second World War or futuristic settings. Gameplay-wise, it's a fast-paced FPS with good controls and weapon variety. You can use revolvers, shotguns and crossbows, sniper rifles, rocket launchers, all made in steampunk style. You even get vampire powers as you progress, like blood vision, shadow grenades and the supernatural high jump. These are cool skills to have, but honestly I have not used them too often, just when the combat was very intense and I needed extra damage or an extra armor. What surprised me is that you can make moral choices, good or evil, which subtly affect your powers and the ending of the game. This is something which gives the game a bit of depth. There are some levels where you are driving an armed vehicle or there is horseback combat. Both of them presented very well with good controls and aiming. These levels are added some variety to the game, however the levels are already very diverse. Guys, I'm happy to report that the AI is not shit. I remember the AI in the early Medal of Honor PS2 games were so bad that it was ridiculous. Check out my reviews about them if you want to have a good laugh. But in Darkwatch, the enemy is smart. They are not making stupid things and the hit detection is also good. There are many areas in the game where enemies are keep spawning and you cannot proceed until you clear the area. This is common in some modern FPS games as well, however I'm not a big fan of this. I don't mind a few of these, but when the flow of the game is halted by the spawn areas, the momentum breaks for me. Luckily, the amount of these areas are not that much to cause frustration, so it was okay. For example, in Doom 2016 it was much more noticeable. Because you are a vampire, you need to avoid sun on some levels. The sun is not going to kill you, but you cannot generate an extra vampiric shield for yourself, so you have to rely only for your health. If you take a look on the top left corner, there is a bar above my health meter. It is empty now, as I am in the sunlight area, so it cannot regenerate at the moment. You can regain your health by taking the souls of your enemies. I think those red and white orbs are probably souls, but anyway these are replenishing your health. You can also find health items throughout the levels. I found the difficulty is just perfect on normal level, not much frustration, and just the right amount of challenge. What really sets Darkwatch apart for me is the atmosphere. However, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of vampires or western stuff. But the game is drenched in this gritty, gothic steampunk vibe, and I very much enjoy the areas where I massacre the demons. The environments are full of decaying churches, haunted towns, moonlit deserts. It's like funhousing mixed with doom. Even the music blends spaghetti western twangs with eerie choral tones. The art direction is phenomenal for a 6th gen title. Jericho looks badass, enemies are grotesque and creative. There's also a bit of sexiness when you meet your fellow female teammate.
Giddy up, cowboy. My name's Tala. Let's mount up.
Now, Darkwatch isn't perfect. It's a product of its time and it shows in some areas. The mission structure is linear and can feel repetitive. But come on, this is an FPS, you cannot make much variety when you constantly need to just shoot. The developers have made an effort to write some background story for each mission, but don't think anything too deep. However, each mission holds critical objectives which must be achieved to defeat the final boss. I read that some people complain that the game is short, maybe 6-8 hours max. I wouldn't call this short. Most of the FPS games from this era have a similar playtime, and I felt that by the end that I had enough. If the game would drag on even longer, it would be overstay its welcome. I would love to see a bit of dark humor as well here and there in the game, but it seems Jericho is not the same as Caleb in Blood, who is constantly throwing one-liners. If you ask me if you should play Darkwatch, I definitely would say yes, even if you're not into vampires and western stuff. I really enjoyed my playthrough, and I'm not rule out a second one in the future. Darkwatch has its unapologetic style, and that's hard to forget. It leans fully into its weird concept and executes it with confidence. It reminds me of a time when developers were still taking big creative risks, and honestly, that spirit is something we don't see enough of today. So, if you dig 6th gen good FPS games, give Darkwatch a try. It is a hidden gem from the PS2 Xbox era that deserves more love. And if you played Darkwatch, let me know in the comments. Did you go good or evil? I hope that you enjoyed this time travel back to the golden era of gaming. If you enjoyed digging up forgotten classics or disasters, I got plenty more where this came from. So, join our community by subscribing. Also, the YouTube algorithm shows on some videos for you. It is on the screen now, check them out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Backlog Quest video.